Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we're looking at a Friday night slate here, pretty big slate on this one. In this video, we are taking a look at the Nets headed to Utah, take on the Jazz. Both teams struggling a bunch lately. The Jazz will be without Rudy Gobert. They are getting Donnie Mitchell back, so we'll look at some of those props and some of the best bets in there. Nate does have his great article up on playpicks.com with some of those best bets and player props for you. And do make sure you like and subscribe to that page. Got a couple other videos for you on this big slate here. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, the Nets are plus 5.5 here, headed to Utah. We're recording on a Thursday night, so it's an interesting exercise in really seeing where lines open and pouncing on them if they're exploitable. We got a total opening at 229 here. I think we do like the over with Donovan Mitchell playing, but we will get into that more. There are 8 other games here on Friday night. As they open, the Celtics are -8 at Detroit. Bulls are -2 at the Pacers. Chicago just lost in overtime on Thursday night at Toronto. Cavs are +5 at the Hornets. They're struggling right now without Darius Garland. The Hawks, coming off a win over Phoenix, are +2 at Toronto. The Rockets +3 at the Spurs. We got a huge 239-point total there. Pelicans +5.5 at Denver. The Thunder are +7.5 at the struggling Blazers. And then the other game we break down is basically a pick 'em right now. Philly +1 at Dallas. That total only opening at 210. And if you're following the trends with the Mavs, you want to pounce on that over, I think, right now. I do expect that. I do also expect a Philly win, but the over seems even better if you're betting early. Look, with the Nets and Jazz, you said it. I mean, both struggling. It's kind of a crisis of confidence if you want to back either team. What you can expect is a good amount of points. Anytime Kyrie Irving's playing for this team, they've just been pretty much on fire offensively. The exception is, of course, what happened in Sacramento. The night after they played, they got to the over with Phoenix. They lost by 10 points, but another expected result, basically let's just say, well, this team can't stop anybody, but they have 2 of the best one-on-one players ever. So there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. And then maybe that's rock bottom for the Nets. James Harden gets 4 points the next night. He is just musing in the post game about retiring and or going to Philly next season. Just all sorts of cryptic messages. It's a mess in there, but you got to imagine that on this day off, they did some soul searching. It's that they've lost 6 straight. Look, if they lose another game or 2, they're going to be in the play-in tournament all of a sudden. It's gone past the point of just saying like, oh, we'll be fine once Durant comes back. They have to right this ship and do it in a hurry. And Utah, without Rudy Gobert is a bad team. They also just lost Joe Ingles for the season. They won their last time out against Denver. They now have 11 of their wins against their own division, and it's just something that they've been able to pull out. But you only recognize 3 of the names in their starting lineup, really in their rotation. You got Rudy Gay off the bench, excuse me. And it was a Nikola Jokic-less Nuggets team. So not much stock to put in that. They've also lost their only other win against the Pistons, right? They've lost the Rockets in this span. Just some really feeble efforts from the Jazz without Gobert, who they're now 2-7 without. Donovan Mitchell coming back, though, does make us feel good about a bit of a shootout in his last 6 against the Nets. He's got nearly 28 points per game, shooting 50, 40, 88 on a 33% usage rate. So that is why I do feel good about the over here. And I do feel like the Nets aren't going to lose by 10 or 11 points again. So my preferred teaser here would just be to go Nets +9.5. Get that under. The over down to 225. Probably going to be closer to 228, honestly, because people are going to hit this, I think. Yeah. Once they see Donovan Mitchell is back and they know the Nets are on the road. But I think it's something you can still exploit in order to get the Nets. And there's a lot of scenarios in which Nets win or lose, but that they're not going to lose by 10 points in this spot, and then that will get your teaser to hit.
Yeah, no, I'm with it. I mean, I'm not actually that scared of plus 5.5 for the Nets here. I mean, look, one stat that it just start things off really in terms of what the Jazz do when they're home favorites. They're the second worst cover percentage in the league when they're home favorites. You mentioned it's usually because they've been home favorites by double digits consistently. They still do have a margin of victory at home when they're home favorites of 6 points a game. But this is a Jazz team that doesn't have Rudy Gobert, and look, I'm never going to really, give the man, if I had one, I wouldn't give him a vote for MVP necessarily. I don't know where I would have placed him before this, but I mean, he's making a case for himself as the most important person to his team. When you look at it's honestly, obviously, when he's not in, what their defensive rating is, climbs about 5 points per 100. But with, no, I'm sorry. That's wrong. With when he's not in, it's huge. Their defensive rating jumps to 13 points per 100 possessions. But what you might not know is that with him, their offensive rating is way better by about 7 points per 100. So, they need him all over the floor. Donnie Mitchell is the same way. When he's not on the floor, their offensive rating it drops about 4 points per 100, which is actually about the same as Rudy, slightly less. So really, what I'm saying here is no matter on which side of the floor you're talking about, Rudy's super important to everything they do. They even shoot worse from three when Rudy's not in, likely because of the fact that people are packing the paint a bit more when you've got a 7'2" guy that can shoot over you and has at least a decent enough touch around the rim. So I feel like the team that the Jazz are going to put out there, you talk about not knowing who guys are. Obviously, they've got Clarkson playing the same role he's always played. But, in their last couple games, you've got, in 5 games specifically, you've got Trent Forrest playing more than 20 minutes a game. You got a lot of Danwell House, a lot of Hassan Whiteside. And then, Elijah Hughes for names of people. My point is you've got a lot of guys getting 15 to 20 minutes at least a game that are really just subbing in and out for each other, because then you've got Mike Conley, and like you mentioned, Rudy Gay and those guys playing, 30 plus minutes each and playing most of that game. So I don't like that team compared to having those two scorers on the floor like the Nets will tonight. I know James Harden has a lot to be desired and left a lot there in terms of what he's done since KD went down. He's played in 4 of the 6 losses that they've had, and they've lost 6 in a row, obviously. And in those games, he's looked really, really bad. 18 points, 7 boards, 11.5 assists a game. But his shooting splits, shooting 34% from the field and 25 from 3. He's turning the ball over at the highest rate in the league, 5.5 a game, with a minus 14 plus minus in that time frame for him. So look, Kyrie's Kyrie. He's going to ball. He's going to get his offense. He's not going to play defense. Neither of those guys are, which another reason we love that over and keep it. If you can get the over, like you said, at 229, if you're able to still get it at that time by the time you're getting this video. By all means, nail it, because I mean this thing's going to be in the 230s. Especially when KD doesn't sit, that's a huge thing we've talked about. Their defensive rating jumps a ton, and their offensive rating continues to get better with KD off the floor because they've had Kyrie now for more games, right? So it's not like they're worse with KD, not on the floor on offense, but they have been able to have Kyrie on there, which just leads to a faster pace and a faster sort of less defense sort of way of things. So I think your tease feels great in terms of the Nets getting those points. But I think, if these guys are going to play well in terms of Harden and Kyrie, I think that the fourth quarter should be theirs, to be honest. And I think that, you'll see their better closers. Obviously, Donnie Mitchell has still been, he's still in the top 10 in terms of points per game in the fourth quarter this year. But, I would sprinkle a little bit on that money line over parlay if you can get it at about 221 and get, your odds close to about plus 300 there for the Nets with that spread a little bit too high, in my opinion. And I feel comfortable just taking that as my favorite bet in this game. If you can get it, the Nets might be bet down by the time you're seeing this. It might be closer to about 3 or so, but if you can get it at 6, I love that. Otherwise, I'll follow you right along with a teaser to get them, at least 7 points or so, depending on where you get this spread, and then get that over, down to about under 230, and you're feeling really good about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel confident about anything about the Nets, just besides the fact that they're a good team on paper. Like, if you go beyond that and think about the chemistry and the mood around this team right now, it's just awful. I mean, and they haven't covered in 15 of their last 20 games overall. That even counts when they had KD in there at points, and we both agree that he's probably the best player in the league. And I mean, yeah, there will be a bounce back, I think, from this team. I did talk about how their back is against the wall here, and it's very important for them to snap this skid. But I don't know how confident I feel, but that's why I would tease it, because I think that they will at least give a run at this. But I also don't have any confidence in the Jazz. So
right. Exactly.
I mean, I honestly, this isn't my preferred game to go at in terms of picking a line. I think it'd be a great game to target in terms of props, because I think the stars will be out. I think Donnie Mitchell, and I think you can get some bounce back props from Harden. I saw it open at 23.5 points for him. He actually has 38 and 43 in his last 2 trips to Utah when he was a member of the Rockets there. Shot 55% at Utah at Vivint Arena. So he clearly enjoys playing there. And I mean, I think the guy just too much talent, too much pride to really follow up that 4-point dud without bringing it for his team. I mean, fortune does favor the bold, and I think if you like the 5 points, like Josh, then just take the Nets to win at that point. I mean, take the money line, because there's really no reason to think that Utah is a lock right now. Joe Ingles is a huge part of what they do too. And Jordan Clarkson is also questionable for this one. So it's not like they're coming in here at full strength, ready to win. And they just, they don't cover this year. It's just been consistently, 7-6 against the spread when they have a rest advantage, but they do win with that rest advantage. So, it's we'll see what happens.
I mean, honestly, I think, I keep feeling better and better because you keep mentioning I have no faith in the Nets and what they've done lately. I feel that way about the Jazz as well. You want to talk about covering in their last 20, same exact concept for the Jazz. They've covered in about 14% of their last 17 games looking at this. So, it's going to be 2 gross lineups. You're going to have one that has Donovan Mitchell in it and one that has James Harden and Kyrie in it. So I'm following both of those props right there. 23.5 for James Harden, great. 24.5 for Kyrie Irving, wonderful. We'll see what Donnie Mitchell's are when they come out, but it's probably about 28.5 if I had to guess. I'm not an odds maker, but that's about where I would put it in a game where he plays really, really well against the Nets, as you mentioned, averaging about 28 a game in his last 7 appearances versus the Nets, who haven't played defense in a long time. So, I would say, all those props feel great. Stars out tonight, a bunch of points. Is it going to be 240? It could be. Is it going to be 230? I think it's going to be between there. So I would feel good about anything that, you play that way tonight. And it's going to be a fun game either way, but it could go either way. But I would say if the Nets are getting 6, that's way too high. And it should be a lot closer to 2 just because of that home court advantage. The team that doesn't look like the normal Utah Jazz that you've seen in the last couple seasons. So that is all the time we have for you on this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Got a couple other videos up for you today on this Friday night slate. And until we see you next, happy betting.